said they didn't exist and threw this money in my face!
Camille, please, I made a mistake.
A mistake doesn't cost $20,000!
My name is Camille Brooks. 15 years ago, I was abandoned in the snow while pregnant with triplets. He laid $20,000 on the table and told me to disappear. But I came back, stronger than ever. And that night, one sentence from me made the entire room go silent. Before I share the whole story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The snow was falling outside our tiny Manhattan apartment, each flake catching the glow of streetlights like scattered diamonds. I'd spent all afternoon preparing Grant's favorite meal, coq au vin, the way his grandmother supposedly made it. The wine reduction filled our cramped kitchen with warmth that had nothing to do with the stove. My hands trembled as I set the table, not from cold, but from the secret growing inside me. 8 weeks. 8 weeks of morning sickness hidden behind closed bathroom doors, of secretly switching to decaf at work, of practicing how I'd tell him in front of the mirror. Grant was late, again. I touched my still flat stomach through my dress, the black one he loved, the one I'd worn on our first real date. Back then, he'd shown up with wildflowers from a bodega, laughing about how they were all he could afford. One day, he'd promised, I'll buy you orchids every week. The lock turned at 9:47 p.m. I knew because I'd been watching the clock, willing myself not to text him again. He stumbled through the door, bringing winter and whiskey with him. And something else, a perfume that wasn't mine. It clung to his coat like an accusation. Sorry, baby. His kiss landed somewhere near my ear. Prescott family thing ran late. The Prescott family thing. There was always a Prescott family thing. Board meetings, charity galas, gatherings where girlfriends like me, Black, Italian, middle-class me, apparently didn't fit the guest list. You promised you'd introduce me at the gala next month, I said, helping him with his coat. My fingers brushed the lipstick stain on his collar. Coral. I wore burgundy. Yeah, about that. He slumped into a chair. Mother thinks it's too soon. Too soon. We'd been together over a year. I'd redesigned the UX for his family's real estate app for free. I'd held him through his father's death. I'd loved him with everything I had. Grant. I sat across from him, my special dinner growing cold between us. I need to tell you something. Can it wait? I've had a hell of a day. No? My voice came out steadier than I felt. It can't. I watched his face change as I said the words. I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Then he laughed, actually laughed, cold and sharp as the ice forming on our windows. You think a baby will trap me? He stood, swaying slightly. Jesus, Camille, I'm marrying Rebecca Vale in June. The announcement's next week. Rebecca Vale. The name hit me like a physical blow. The heiress. The suitable one. The white one. But you said, we talked about the future. Your future was never my future. He reached into his wallet, pulled out his black card and a stack of hundreds. $20,000 landed on my grandmother's tablecloth like dirty snow. Take care of it, discreetly. Grant, please. This conversation never happened. That thing inside you doesn't exist. That thing, our baby, the future I'd been stupid enough to dream about. He left without looking back. I sat there until the candles burned down to nothing, until the fancy dinner congealed on our plates, until I couldn't tell if the wetness on my face was tears or melted snow from the window I'd cracked open to breathe. When I finally stood, something inside me had crystallized, hard and sharp as Manhattan ice. I gathered the money, every horrible bill, and shoved it in my purse. Not to use it, never that, but to remember. To remember the exact price Grant Prescott IV had put on our love, our future, our child. I walked out into the December night. No coat, no plan, just a broken heart and a promise already forming on my lips. The snow was falling harder now, and somewhere between 3rd Avenue and the East River, my knees gave out. I collapsed on the salted sidewalk, my dress soaking through, my body trying to protect the life inside me even as everything else fell apart. I'll protect you, I whispered to my belly, to the night, to the uncaring city around me. I'll protect you even if the whole world turns away. A stranger called 911. The last thing I remember before the world went dark was the taste of winter on my lips and the certainty that everything I'd known was over. But endings, I would learn, could also be beginnings. The hospital ceiling had exactly 247 tiles. I knew because I'd counted them all while lying on the narrow bed, trying not to think about the word the doctor kept using. Threatened. Threatened miscarriage, as if my body was holding my baby hostage. You need to rest, Dr. Martinez said, her kind eyes scanning my chart. The bleeding has stopped, but you're severely dehydrated and your blood pressure is concerning. Is there someone we can call? I thought about lying. Instead, my shaking fingers dialed the only number that mattered. Prescott residence. The voice was crisp, cold, familiar. Charlotte Vale Prescott, Grant's mother. Mrs. Prescott, it's Camille. I'm in the hospital. I need to speak to Grant. How did you get this number? Please, I just need... Listen carefully, girl. The venom in her voice could have poisoned the entire East River. My son told me about your pathetic attempt at entrapment. That bastard you're carrying will never have the Prescott name. Never. If you call again, I'll have you arrested for harassment? The line went dead. I stared at the phone until a nurse gently took it from my hand. Honey, she said softly, we need to talk about your ultrasound results. The room tilted. Is my baby okay? Babies, she corrected. You're carrying triplets. The world stopped. Triplets. 3 hearts beating inside me. 3 lives depending on me. 3 reasons Grant's abandonment cut even deeper. I was discharged 2 days later with strict bed rest orders, prenatal vitamins I couldn't afford, and a bill that might as well have been written in hieroglyphics for all the sense the numbers made. $23,000. More than Grant's blood money, which I'd refused to touch. My supervisor at the startup was sympathetic for exactly 1 phone call. I'm sorry, Camille, but we need someone reliable. Your contract's terminated. We'll mail your last check. And my landlord was less polite. Rent's due in 3 days. Pay or get out. I sold everything worth selling, my laptop, my tablet, the watch Grant had given me for my birthday. It wasn't enough. On a frozen January morning, I packed what I could carry and became another invisible woman on New York's streets. Pregnant, black, homeless. I'd hit the trifecta of society's forgotten. The shelter was full. The second one had a 3-month waiting list. By the third, I was too exhausted to stand. A security guard took pity and let me sleep in the 24-hour laundromat on Delancey, between the warmth of the dryers and the fluorescent judgment of fellow midnight wanderers. I found work at a diner in Brooklyn, the kind where they didn't ask questions if you could carry plates and pour coffee. My belly grew rounder, harder to hide under the stained apron. The other waitresses whispered. The cook made crude jokes. I smiled and saved every tip in a jar hidden behind the dumpster. When you do, honey? A regular asked one February morning, sliding an extra 20 across the counter. May, I lied. It was easier than explaining triplets, easier than seeing pity transform their faces. My feet swelled until my shoes split at the seams. My back screamed with every tray I lifted. But those 3 heartbeats, strong and steady at each clinic visit, kept me moving. I'd sneak into the hospital for prenatal care, giving fake names, fake addresses, real desperation. One bitter March evening, exhausted after a 12-hour shift, I collapsed at my usual booth to count tips. $7 short of what I needed for the weekly motel that didn't ask questions. I'd been living on leftover soup and broken crackers, saving every penny for when the babies came. I didn't notice the man watching me until he slid into the opposite seat. Rough night? His voice was warm, unexpected. I looked up, ready to deflect another advance, but his eyes, brown like good coffee, held something different. Curiosity, maybe, or recognition. I'm not working that booth, I said automatically. Sherry's section. He smiled, pushing a napkin toward me. I'd been sketching on it during my break. Wireframes for an app idea, muscle memory from my old life. I'm not here for coffee. I'm here for this. It's nothing, just doodling. That's a sophisticated authentication flow for doodling. He extended his hand. Miles Harrington. I run a clean energy tech company. And you are? Tired, I said, then softer. Camille. Well, Camille, how would you like to doodle for a living? I'm looking for a UX designer. The job's in Chicago, but I could cover relocation. I almost laughed. Here I sat, 7 months pregnant with triplets, homeless, broken, and this stranger was offering me salvation disguised as a job interview. I'm not exactly in a position to relocate, I said, gesture encompassing my obvious condition. When are you due? Soon. My hand protected my belly instinctively. With triplets. His eyebrows rose, but his offer didn't waver. Then we better move fast. Can you start remotely? I'll set you up with equipment, temporary housing. If it works out, we'll make it permanent after I give birth to 3 babies alone. The words came out bitter. You don't even know if I can design. He tapped the napkin. I know enough. And Camille, everyone deserves a second chance, even those of us who've been knocked down. I looked at this stranger offering me a lifeline and made a choice. For Aurora, Asher, and Amelia, though I didn't know their names yet. For the future, Grant had tried to erase. When do I start? Chicago in April felt like January in New York. I stood outside the address Miles had given me, triple-checking the numbers. The building looked like it might collapse if I breathed too hard, but it had heat, a door that locked, and a bed that didn't smell like other people's desperation. Home sweet home, I whispered to my belly, climbing 3 flights of groaning stairs. The apartment was basically a large closet with delusions of grandeur, but Miles had been true to his word. A desk waited in the corner, laptop still in its box, sticky notes with passwords, and welcome to the team in unfamiliar handwriting. I worked 18-hour days, designing interfaces between bathroom breaks and Braxton Hicks contractions. The Nova Grid project consumed me, creating elegant solutions for complex energy distribution problems. It was easier than thinking about how alone I was, how every kick reminded me of Grant's words. Doesn't exist. Miles checked in daily via video calls. How's the authentication flow coming? Good, I'd lie, minimizing the window so he couldn't see I'd been working from my bed after my ankles swelled too much to sit at the desk. And how are you? That was harder to lie about. Also good. He never pressed, just nodded like he understood the weight of words unsaid. By late April, I could barely walk. The babies, my little trio, seemed determined to rearrange my internal organs. I'd named them already. Aurora for the dawn I hoped was coming. Asher for the strength I'd need to raise them. Amelia for my grandmother who'd raised me to be stronger than I felt. The first real contractions started during a client presentation. I muted my mic, breathed through the pain, and kept explaining user flow optimization while my body prepared for war. Brilliant work, Camille, Miles said as we wrapped up. The client's thrilled. We'll celebrate when... I couldn't hold back the gasp as another contraction hit. Camille? I'm fine, I managed. But the video betrayed me. My face was tight with pain, sweat beading despite the cold apartment. How far apart? What? The contractions. How far apart? I wanted to lie, to finish the project, to prove I was worth his faith. But my water broke mid-thought, a rush of warmth and reality. Oh God. I'm calling an ambulance. Which hospital? I don't have insurance. I can't afford... Camille. His voice cut through my panic. Northwestern Memorial. I'll meet you there. Go, now. The next hours blurred into pain and fluorescent lights. Nurses speaking in medical code, doctors frowning at monitors. 32 weeks with triplets? High risk? Prepare the NICU? Miles appeared like a guardian angel in a rumpled suit, still wearing his conference badge. I'm her brother, he told the nurse, the lie smooth as silk. Whatever she needs, I'll handle the bills. Sir, you don't understand. The NICU alone could be... I said I'll handle it. I wanted to protest, but Aurora was coming, and there was no room for pride in delivery. She arrived screaming, all 4 pounds of fury and fight. Asher followed, quieter but steady. Amelia needed help breathing, and they whisked her away before I could touch her. They're beautiful, Miles said, standing by my bed as I sobbed. From exhaustion, from joy, from terror at the tubes and wires connecting my babies to life. Why? I asked him. Why are you doing this? He was quiet for a long moment. My daughter died, he said finally. Car accident. She was 22, just starting her career. Brilliant designer, like you. He squeezed my hand. I couldn't save her, but maybe this is how I honor her memory. We sat in silence, watching my babies fight to live through the NICU window. 3 tiny warriors in plastic wombs, continuing the battle I'd started on a snowy Manhattan night. The next weeks were measured in ounces gained, in seconds without oxygen support, in small victories. I lived at the hospital, pumping milk every 3 hours, holding them skin to skin when allowed, singing lullabies my grandmother had sung to me. Miles brought me clothes, food, a sketch pad for the ideas that came between feedings. His wife Eleanor appeared with homemade soup and gentle silence. They didn't ask about the father. They didn't need to. On Christmas Eve, 8 months after Grant's betrayal, I sat in the Harringtons' living room with 3 finally healthy babies. The tree lights blurred through my tears as Eleanor handed me a small box. Just a little something, she said. Inside was a key. What's this? The company's expanding, Miles said. We need you in the office full-time. The apartment upstairs from it just became available. 3 bedrooms, good schools nearby. I can't accept. You can and you will. Eleanor's voice brooked no argument. Family doesn't always mean blood, Camille. Sometimes it means choosing each other. I looked at my babies, sleeping peacefully in their bouncy seats. At this couple who'd appeared when I needed them most. at the key that represented more than just walls and doors. "Thank you," I whispered, understanding that sometimes salvation comes disguised as strangers in diners, as CEOs who see potential in napkin sketches, as people who choose to catch you when the world lets you fall. That night, holding my children as snow fell outside, I made them a promise. I'll build us an empire, and everyone who said you didn't exist will watch you shine. 5 years in, and I still arrived at the office before dawn. It was my secret hour, when the babies slept and Chicago held its breath before the morning rush. In the quiet, I could think clearest, code fastest, dream biggest. The Novagrid system had started as a desperate sketch on a diner napkin. Now it powered half of Illinois' renewable energy distribution. My bio-inspired algorithm, based on managing 3 infants' competing needs, had revolutionized how we thought about energy load balancing. "You know what your problem is?" Sarah from the board had said during my first presentation. "You're trying to make us believe a single mother of triplets can out-innovate our entire R&D department." "No," I'd replied, pulling up the efficiency metrics. "I'm showing you she already has." That shut her up. Numbers didn't lie, even when board members wanted them to. My phone buzzed. Aurora's teacher. Again. "Ms. Brooks?" Aurora corrected my math during class. "She's right, but she's 5 and shouldn't know calculus," I finished. "I'll talk to her." This was the new challenge. 3 genius children who inherited their father's intellect and their mother's hunger to prove themselves. Aurora saw patterns in everything. Asher could code before he could tie his shoes. Amelia composed symphonies in her head and translated them into algorithms for fun. "Mama, why don't we have a daddy?" Amelia had asked last week, her big brown eyes, Grant's eyes, searching mine. "Because we have everything we need," I'd said, braiding her hair. "Some families look different. Ours is exactly right." She'd accepted it with a child's simple faith. But I knew harder questions were coming. The office filled slowly. My team now, 12 brilliant minds I'd handpicked from schools that, like me, the Ivy League ignored. We built solutions for problems others didn't see, served communities others overlooked. "Camille!" David burst in, tablet in hand. "Rebecca Vale's company just tried to poach our compression algorithm." Rebecca Vale, the suitable wife. I'd kept tabs, watched her climb the social ladder on Grant's arm while his family's empire slowly crumbled under outdated practices and overlooked markets. "Let them try," I said. "Our patent's airtight. Besides, they don't have the biomimic foundation. It'll never scale." But she kept trying. Anonymous attacks on our servers. Whisper campaigns about my stability as a single mother CEO. Corporate espionage dressed in charity gala small talk. I fought back the only way I knew how, by being better. Every attack made me work harder, innovate faster, build higher walls around what I'd created. "You're becoming obsessed," Miles warned during our quarterly review. "She's not worth your energy." He was right, but she wore Grant's name now. Every move she made felt like another echo of that night, another reminder of what he'd chosen over us. The turning point came during a sustainability conference in Silicon Valley. I was presenting Novagrid's expansion into Asian markets when I noticed the whispers, the phones coming out. "Mama, you're famous," Asher called that night, showing me his tablet. The Forbes article filled the screen. From homeless to billions, how Camille Brooks built an empire while raising genius triplets. My picture dominated the cover. Professional, polished, powerful. But it was the smaller photos that made my heart stop. Aurora, Asher, and Amelia at the company picnic. Their faces clear, unmistakable. Those weren't just my eyes looking back from Amelia's face. The strong jaw on Asher, Aurora's distinct nose, all Prescott features, displayed for the world to see. "Mama, are you okay?" Aurora asked, always the most perceptive. "Yes, baby, just thinking." That night, after bedtime stories and goodnight kisses, I sat in my office and waited. It didn't take long. The call came at midnight. Unknown number, Boston area code. "They're mine." Grant's voice, after 6 years, still had the power to freeze my blood. "Those children are mine." "No," I said simply. "They're mine. You made that clear with $20,000 and a directive to make them not exist." "I didn't know. Triplets. Camille, be reasonable." "Reasonable?" I laughed, but it was sharp, brittle. "Was it reasonable when I gave birth alone? When I slept in laundromats? When your mother called them bastards?" "I could destroy you." His voice dropped, the threat clear. "Custody battles, media scandals. I could take everything." "You could try." I pulled up the files I'd kept. Receipts, recordings, witnesses. But I don't think your wife would appreciate learning about us during discovery, or your board discovering how you've been cooking the books to hide losses. Silence. In it, I heard everything. His rage, his regret, his realization that the girl he'd discarded had become someone he couldn't dismiss. "This isn't over," he said finally. "No," I agreed. "It's just beginning." I hung up and made 3 calls. First to my lawyer, then to my PR team, finally to Miles. "He knows," I said simply. "Then we prepare," Miles replied, no hesitation. Family protects family. Looking out at the Chicago skyline, I thought about the girl who'd collapsed on a Manhattan sidewalk. She'd been broken, desperate, alone, but she'd had one thing Grant never understood: the power of someone with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. "Come for us," I whispered to the night. "We're ready." 10 years felt like a lifetime and a heartbeat. I stood on the stage at Climate Innovation Summit, looking out at an audience of thousands. Behind me, the screen showed Novogrid's impact: 2.3 billion tons of carbon reduced, 14 countries transformed, one woman's napkin sketch became a global revolution. "Innovation doesn't always come from where we expect," I said, clicking to the next slide, a photo of my tiny first Chicago apartment. "Sometimes it comes from desperation. From a mother trying to optimize formula feeding for triplets at 3 a.m. and realizing the same principles could revolutionize energy distribution." The audience laughed. They always did at that part. The struggling single mother made good. It was the American dream wrapped in sustainable technology. What they didn't see was Aurora in the wings, correcting my math in real time. Or Asher, who'd hacked the conference Wi-Fi to boost my presentation quality. Or Amelia, whose algorithmic compositions provided the soundtrack to our success. My children had grown into their brilliance beautifully and terrifyingly. At 15, they were already fielding university offers, patent applications, and the kind of attention that made my security team nervous. "Thank you, Chicago," I closed to thunderous applause, but my smile faded as I saw my assistant's face backstage. "What is it, James?" He handed me his phone. TMZ's headline screamed, "Billionaire baby daddy drama. Grant Prescott claims hidden heirs." The photos were everywhere. Side-by-side comparisons of Grant and my children. Speculation about secret millions in child support. Lies wrapped in just enough truth to be dangerous. "Mom." Amelia appeared at my elbow, her phone clutched in her hand. "Why is our picture next to this strange man?" This was the moment I'd prepared for, dreaded, known would come. "Let's go home," I said. "It's time we talked." The penthouse was silent as I told them everything. Grant's betrayal, the money on the table, the night their existence was denied. My children, brilliant, analytical, precise, absorbed it all without interruption. Finally, Asher spoke. "So he's our biological father?" "Yes, but he didn't want us." "No, he didn't." Aurora, ever the strategist, was already thinking ahead. "He wants something now. The timing isn't coincidental. Our quantum computing paper just got accepted. He's hemorrhaging money. He needs us." She was right. Prescott and Vail Holdings was dying, choked by old money hubris and new economy realities. Grant needed an innovation injection, and what better than claiming the genius children he'd abandoned? "I won't let him near you," I said fiercely. "Mom." Amelia took my hand. "We're not babies anymore. We can handle this." But could I? Watching the media storm explode, seeing Grant on every screen playing the victim, kept from my children, denied my rights as a father, I felt that old rage resurface. Eleanor Harrington called within hours. "The lawyers are ready. We'll bury him." "No?" The word surprised me. "We do this right. Clean. Public. Camille, he wants a fight in the spotlight? He'll get one, but on my terms." I scheduled the interview for the following week. Prime time. Live. No edits. No escape routes. Grant showed up looking like old money's last gasp, gray at the temples. Lines that spoke of stress rather than laughter. Still handsome in that cold, carved way that had once made me stupid. "Camille," he said, as if my name was a negotiation. "Mr. Prescott." I kept my voice professional, distant. "Shall we?" The interview started soft. His version of events, all regret and missed opportunities. Then came my turn. "You say you were denied access to your children," the interviewer prompted. "I was never denied anything," I said clearly. "Mr. Prescott made his position clear the night I told him I was pregnant. He called our children things that don't exist and left money for an abortion on my table." "That's not—" "I have the recording." I pulled out my phone. His mother, Charlotte Vale Prescott, called me personally to ensure I understood that my children would never be acknowledged. Would you like to hear it? Grant's face went white. Beside him, Rebecca shifted, her perfect composure cracking. You recorded, I protected myself, I corrected. The same way I've protected my children from a man who saw them as inconveniences until they became valuable. They're my blood. Blood? I laughed, and it wasn't kind. Miles Harrington held my hand through labor. Eleanor taught them to tie their shoes. My team became their aunts and uncles. That's family. You're just DNA. The killing blow came from an unexpected source. Rebecca spoke, her voice cutting through the tension. I'm filing for divorce, she announced, looking straight at the camera. I won't be part of this shameful attempt to exploit children for financial gain. Grant turned on her, forgetting the cameras. You knew. You've always known. Yes, she said simply. I knew you abandoned your pregnant girlfriend. I knew you chose money over morality. I married you anyway, to my eternal regret. The interview ended in chaos. Grant threatening everyone, Rebecca's icy exit, me sitting calmly in the storm I'd orchestrated. But the real victory came later, at home, as my children surrounded me. You were amazing, Aurora said. Brutal, Asher added approvingly. Our hero, Amelia finished, and they folded me into a hug that healed wounds I'd carried for 15 years. We still don't need him, I whispered into their embrace. We never did. We know, they said in unison. We have you. And that had always been enough. The Waldorf Astoria looked exactly as it had 15 years ago. Same marble, same gilt, same suffocating elegance that had once made me feel so small. Now I owned a company worth more than this entire building. You sure about this? James asked as our car pulled up, the Global Technology Summit. The same ballroom where Grant had promised to introduce me to his world, then left me standing outside in the snow. Poetry or masochism, I wasn't sure which. We're sure, Aurora said from beside me, adjusting her glasses. A nervous tell she'd inherited from somewhere, certainly not from me. My children had insisted on coming. We're part of this story, Asher had argued. We deserve to face it with you. Now they flanked me like an honor guard in their coordinated black. Aurora in a sleek pantsuit, Asher in a modern-cut tuxedo, Amelia in a flowing dress that moved like music. My trinity, brilliant and brave. The whispers started the moment we entered. Camille Brooks, the woman who'd built an empire from nothing, her genius children, the scandal, the rejection, the triumph. Ms. Brooks, reporters swarmed. Any comment on Grant Prescott's bankruptcy filing? I hadn't known. The news hit like vindication and vertigo combined. But I kept my face neutral, my children's hands steady in mine. Novagrid remains focused on sustainable innovation, I said smoothly. We wish all struggling companies well in these challenging times. Inside, the ballroom glittered with its familiar false warmth. Tech titans and old money mingled like oil and water, pretending to mix. I was scheduled to deliver the keynote, Innovation from the Margins, in an hour. I saw him before he saw me. Grant, diminished but still trying to command the room. His tux was impeccable but rented. I could tell by the way he held himself, protective of the cuffs. Beside him, Charlotte Vale Prescott held court, her face a mask of preserved privilege. Breathe, Amelia whispered, and I realized I'd stopped. We moved through the crowd like a ship through water, people partying in waves of curiosity and camera phones. I was heading for the stage when he intercepted us. Camille. Time slowed. 15 years collapsed into seconds. He was older, grayer. Smaller, somehow. But his eyes... God, my children had his eyes. Grant. I kept my voice level, professional. Charlotte. His mother's gaze sliced over my children like a scalpel, cataloging Prescott features with growing horror. The cheekbones, the nose, the stubborn chin that had built shipping empires and lost them to pride. These are my children, I said clearly, not asking, just stating. Aurora, Asher, Amelia. Grant stepped forward, and I saw it. The hunger of a drowning man grasping for shore. They're magnificent. They look like their mother, Asher cut in coolly. I was going to say like Prescott's, Charlotte interjected, her voice dripping calculation. The resemblance is undeniable. Genetics are fascinating, Aurora said, her tone purely academic, but largely irrelevant to achievement. Our success correlates to environmental factors, specifically maternal investment and community support. Grant flinched. Charlotte's eyes narrowed. Don't. Grant said quietly, privately, leaning close enough that I could smell his cologne. Different now, cheaper. Don't let them hate me. I never taught them hate, I replied. I taught them truth. The truth? His laugh was bitter. The truth is, I was a coward. I chose wrong. I've regretted it every day since. No. The word came out harder than intended. You regretted it the day you saw our Forbes cover. The day you realized what you threw away became valuable. Around us, the crowd pretended not to watch while recording everything. This was better than any keynote. Real drama among the artificial smiles. You could have had everything, Charlotte said suddenly, to me but loud enough for others to hear. I offered you a generous settlement to go away quietly. You chose to be difficult. The room stilled. Even the waiter stopped moving. You offered me an abortion, I said clearly. You called my children bastards who'd never bear your name. You threatened me with arrest for trying to contact their father. Mom, Amelia whispered, but I wasn't done. But you were right about one thing, Charlotte. They don't bear your name. They bear mine. They carry the legacy of a woman who fought for them, not a family who denied them. Grant made one last desperate play. I could still fight for custody, visitation, something. You could, I agreed. Then I smiled, and it wasn't kind. But your bankruptcy filing includes some interesting details about fraudulent transfers, shell companies, offshore accounts, things Rebecca's lawyers found quite illuminating. His face went gray. Charlotte's hand tightened on her clutch. Additionally, Aurora added, because my daughter never could resist a killing blow, we're all legally adults as of last month. Any custody claim would be moot. 15. They were only 15. But the Prescotts didn't need to know about accelerated academics and early emancipation paperwork. I believe Ms. Brooks has a keynote to deliver, Asher said, checking his watch. We shouldn't keep the audience waiting. We swept past them toward the stage. But I paused, turned back, met Grant's broken gaze one last time. $20,000, I said softly. That's what you thought we were worth. Tonight, Novagrid's market cap hit $20 billion. Turns out you were bad at math, too. The last thing I saw before the lights hit me was Charlotte Vale Prescott's face. The moment she realized the empire she'd protected so fiercely had been conquered by the woman she'd tried to erase. I took the stage with my children beside me and delivered a keynote about innovation, survival, and the power of those society underestimates. The applause was deafening. But sweeter still was the silence from the table where the Prescott sat, finally understanding the cost of throwing away diamonds while clutching at stones. The subpoena arrived on a Tuesday. I was reviewing expansion plans for Novagrid's European division when James burst in. Legal envelope in hand, face grim. He actually did it, he said. Grant Prescott, in his final desperate move, was suing for recognition of paternity and retroactive involvement in his children's corporate ventures. The man who'd called them things that didn't exist now wanted a piece of what they'd built. Mom, you're doing the thing, Aurora observed from across my office, where she was debugging code. What thing? The scary smile thing. The one that means someone's about to get destroyed. She wasn't wrong. Within hours, my legal team assembled. Not just corporate lawyers, but the kind of attorneys who'd made careers destroying entitled men. Grant wanted a public fight. He'd forgotten who I'd become. Discovery will be brutal, my lead counsel warned. For both sides. Good, I said. I want everything exposed. Every payment to silence women. Every fraudulent transfer. Every dirty secret the Prescotts have buried in Boston soil. But Grant had one card I hadn't expected. He'd hired Reginald Cross, the attorney who'd never lost a custody case, famous for turning public opinion into legal weapons. The media storm was immediate and vicious. Billionaire denies children their heritage. Prescott heirs kept in the dark. Carefully edited interviews where Grant appeared thoughtful, regretful, desperate to know his children. Let me destroy him, Asher said after reading the latest hit piece. 5 minutes with his financial records. No, I said firmly. We do this right. Legal. Clean. Since when do you fight clean? Amelia asked. Since I realized the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's letting them destroy themselves while the world watches. The trial date approached like a storm system. We prepared meticulously. Every receipt saved, every hostile voicemail preserved, every witness who'd seen me sleeping in laundromats tracked down. But the real preparation happened at home, in quiet conversations with my children. Are you angry? I asked them one evening. That I kept him away? You didn't keep him away, Aurora corrected. You kept us safe from someone who didn't want us. There's a difference. But what if? No what ifs, Asher interrupted. We've run the scenarios. Every alternate timeline where he stayed leads to worse outcomes. You saved us by letting him leave. The trial began on a gray March morning. Courtroom 505 was packed. Media, tech titans, Boston old money come to watch their own fall. Grant looked good. His team had styled him perfectly. The struggling father, the man denied his rights. Rebecca had refused to testify for either side, but her absence spoke volumes. Cross opened with emotion. A father separated from his children. 15 years of missed birthdays, lost moments, absence where there should have been presence. Our response was surgical. Document by document, we painted the truth. The money on the table, Charlotte's threatening call, the eviction while pregnant, the shelter rejections, the NICU bills Miles had paid while Grant celebrated his engagement to Rebecca. Mr. Prescott, my attorney asked during cross-examination, what are your children's middle names? Silence. Their birthdays? May, he started, then stopped. Their allergies, medical histories, first words, favorite books? Each question met silence. Each silence spoke louder than any accusation. Then came my testimony. I'd dreaded this moment, reliving the worst night of my life in public. But as I spoke, something shifted. The shame I'd carried wasn't mine. It never had been. He told me they didn't exist, I said, looking directly at him, that the pregnancy was my attempt to trap him. He left money for an abortion and walked out. I gave birth alone, lived in poverty, and built an empire while he built nothing but lies. But surely, Cross interjected, you could have reached out later. I did. I pulled out my phone, played Charlotte's message for the court. Her cultured voice filled the room, dripping contempt, calling my unborn children bastards. The Prescott matriarch, sitting in the gallery, aged 10 years in 10 seconds. But the trial's defining moment came from an unexpected source. Ivy, my sister, who I hadn't seen in 15 years, took the stand. I need to say something, she said, ignoring the lawyer's objections. Charlotte Prescott paid me $50,000 to convince Camille to have an abortion. I took it. I betrayed my sister for money, and I've regretted it every day since. The courtroom exploded. Grant turned on his mother. Charlotte's perfect composure finally cracked. Cross objected frantically, but the damage was done. Your Honor, my lawyer said calmly, we'd like to submit evidence of systematic harassment, bribery, and conspiracy to deny these children their very existence. The judge's decision was swift and scathing. No recognition of paternity. Grant had legally abandoned that right. No financial claim. The children's success was despite him, not because of him. But the real justice came after. The SEC, alerted by evidence from the trial, opened an investigation into Prescott and Vail Holdings. Charlotte was arrested for tax fraud. Grant's remaining assets were frozen. Outside the courthouse, my children stood tall beside me. The cameras clicked and whirred, but we were untouchable now. Any statement? A reporter called. I thought about it, then smiled. Not the scary smile, but the real one. Family isn't about blood or names or old money legacy. It's about showing up. Grant Prescott had his chance to be a father. He chose to be a stranger instead. That's his loss, not ours. We walked away together, through the crowd, past the Prescott relatives, beyond the reach of those who'd tried to diminish us. Justice had been served, cold as a Boston winter, and twice as final. 10 years. 10. That's how long it took for the name Prescott to fade from headlines, from relevance, from our lives. A decade of appeals denied, of Charlotte's imprisonment, of Grant's dissolution into obscurity. I stood in the renovated Brooklyn brownstone, my newest project, a tech incubator for single mothers, full circle from the laundromat where I'd once slept between dryers. You ready? Miles asked, older now but still steady, still the father figure who'd shown up when biology failed. The dedication ceremony was small, intentional. No media circus, just the people who mattered. My children, 25 now, each running divisions of what had become the Harrington Brooks Innovation Group. Miles and Eleanor, gray-haired and proud. My team, my chosen family. Mom's having a moment, Asher murmured to his sisters. I'm allowed moments, I said. I'm dedicating a building. You've dedicated 12 buildings, Aurora pointed out. This one's different, though. She was right. This one sat on the street where I'd collapsed that December night, pregnant and abandoned, where everything ended and began. Ms. Brooks? A young woman approached, baby on her hip, exhaustion and hope warring in her eyes. I'm Jasmine. I start the program Monday. Our first resident. 22. Kicked out by her family. Brilliant coder. Infant daughter. Her story wasn't mine, but it rhymed. Welcome, I said, meaning it. Let me show you your apartment. As we toured, she asked quietly, does it get easier? No, I said honestly, but you get stronger, and you won't be alone. The ceremony itself was simple. No speeches about overcoming adversity or triumph over tragedy. Just the truth, that sometimes the world breaks you, and sometimes you build something beautiful from the pieces. I want to say something, Amelia announced suddenly, taking the microphone. My children hadn't planned to speak, but Amelia had always moved to her own rhythm. 26 years ago, our mother made us a promise. She was alone, scared, broken by someone who should have protected her. But she promised to protect us, to build us an empire. She kept that promise. Aurora joined her. But more than wealth or success, she gave us something invaluable. The knowledge that we were worth fighting for. That we existed, brilliantly and boldly, despite anyone who said otherwise. Asher completed their trinity at the mic. So this building isn't just about providing shelter. It's about proving that the rejected can become remarkable. That those society discards can reshape society itself. I was crying. Not the pretty tears of movie endings, but the messy, healing kind that wash away old wounds. We love you, Mom, they said in unison. Thank you for choosing us when the world said we were a mistake. The applause was warm, but distant. All I could see were my 3 miracles, grown and glorious, living proof that love could conquer abandonment. Later, as the crowd dispersed and the sun set over Brooklyn, I found myself alone on the building's roof garden. The city spread before me, Manhattan's lights just beginning to twinkle, the same view that had witnessed my destruction. Thought I'd find you here, Eleanor appeared, 2 cups of tea in hand. Miles is boring everyone with sustainable building specifications. Let him, I smiled. He's earned the right to be boring. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the city pulse with life. Any regrets? She asked finally. I thought about Grant, last seen in a TMZ photo looking gaunt and forgotten. About Charlotte, serving her sentence in minimum security. About paths not taken and choices made in desperate hours. No, I said finally. Every broken moment led here. I wouldn't change the journey, even the painful parts. Even him? Especially him. His cruelty gave me purpose. His absence left room for real love to grow. My children got Miles as a grandfather. You as a grandmother. A family that chose them rather than one that would have tolerated them. A door opened behind us. Aurora, Asher, and Amelia emerged, carrying a cake with too many candles. It's not anyone's birthday, I protested. It's everyone's birthday, Amelia corrected. The day we all began again. We sang off-key and ate too much sugar and watched the city that had tried to break us sparkle with possibility. My children talked about their projects. Aurora's quantum computing breakthrough, Asher's environmental restoration initiative, Amelia's algorithm that was revolutionizing music therapy. What's next for you? Aurora asked as midnight approached. I looked at my empire. Not just the buildings or billions, but these 3 souls who'd made every struggle worthwhile. The programs lifting other women from despair. The technology changing the world. The love that had grown from abandonment's ashes. I think, I said slowly, it's time to write it all down. The whole story. For every woman sleeping in a laundromat tonight, wondering if tomorrow will be better. Title? Asher asked. I smiled, remembering Grant's words, Charlotte's dismissal, my own promise in a hospital room. Things that don't exist. A story of becoming undeniable. The city hummed below us, full of stories ending and beginning. Somewhere, a young woman was discovering she was pregnant and alone. Somewhere, a man was making the wrong choice. Somewhere, a life was falling apart. But somewhere, too, was the strength to rebuild, the courage to continue, the audacity to transform dismissal into dynasty. We stayed on that rooftop until dawn, my children and I, watching the sun rise over the city that had witnessed our resurrection. In its light, everything seemed possible. Even, especially, the things that weren't supposed to exist. Grant had been wrong about so many things, but most of all, about this. We hadn't needed to trap him. We'd needed him to leave. In his absence, we'd found abundance. In his rejection, we'd discovered our reflection. Brilliant, unbreakable, and utterly, undeniably real.
Sometimes the people who walk away are giving you the gift of freedom. Use it to build a life so powerful that their absence becomes irrelevant. Never let someone else define your worth. Because the greatest revenge is living a life they can never touch.